Good morning. The time is now 9:05. I call this meeting to order, the August 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Enforcement Committee of the Contractor State License Board. My name is Michael Mark, and I'm the Enforcement Committee Chair. Right now, the only committee member that looks like we're missing is Board Member Cobos, while he's having some technical difficulties. Please note that only board members who are members of the Enforcement Committee may participate in this committee meeting. Other board members who are in attendance may observe but cannot ask questions or participate in any of the discussion. Committee members, to mitigate any potential bandwidth issues, we ask that you turn off your video camera. When you would like to comment at any time during the meeting, please use the raise your hand icon. I will call on the committee members to speak. And when called upon, please unmute yourself, and when finished, return to mute. You will also need to click the raise your hand to lower your hand when you're done speaking. Mariah, are you online? Can you please call roll and confirm we have a quorum?
Michael Mark.
Here.
Rodney Cobos. Absent. Susan Granzella.
Here.
Alan Guy.
Here.
Jacob Lopez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. So if Shelley, if you can please give us a flag, we're gonna all stand. And at this time, I ask you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So at this time, we have a new board member, Jacob Lopez. He was appointed to the board last month and assigned to the Enforcement Committee by Chair Mary Tykert. Jacob is a public member appointed by the Senate, and it is my understanding he is employed by the Southern California Carpenters. Board Member Lopez, would you like to say a couple words of an introduction?
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be part of this board, and look forward to working with each one of you in whatever the assignment is at task. I am currently, employed by the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters, representing a little over 60,000 members. I reside in the Los Angeles area, and I am a regional manager for SoCal and an executive board with the Regional Council. And I'm a union carpenter. Thank you.
All right, welcome to the Enforcement Committee, Jacob. So some of the staff that are participating in today's meeting include Board Counsel John Cummings, and I believe there's a new counsel that I heard, Joseph Chen, Enforcement Chief Steve Grove, our Registrar David Folk, Chief Deputy Registrar Michael Jaminski, and Analyst Mariah Rivera. So moving on to agenda item B, public comments for items not on the agenda and future agenda item requests. This item is provided to provide public comment for items not on the agenda. To allow this committee enough time to conduct its full schedule of business, I will be allowing 3 minutes of public comments apiece. Please note that the state law prohibits committee members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment. We are not allowed to act on any item not on the agenda. If you want the community to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda for a future meeting. If you have an application, a complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you did not discuss any of the details of your case or pending complaint. Committee members are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record in the case. If your comments are related to a specific agenda item, you can make your comments now but you may want to wait until that item comes up for discussion. We will ask for public comment before acting on any item. Ms. Jones is our host and moderator today. She will be assisting us by monitoring public comment. Members of the public, when you would like to comment at any time during the meeting, please select the raise your hand icon in the WebEx application or leave a message in the chat feature. At this time, Shelley, is there any public comment?
We do have a couple, and just as a quick matter of housekeeping as we go into this, Mr. Member Cobos is connected. I do see he has an audio connection, but for some reason WebEx is not allowing me to promote him for a panelist. So I'm going to allow him to unmute his microphone from the attendee list, and we can just leave that open for him. Our first comment's going to come from Cesar Lopez.
Before we move on, Shelley.
Yes.
Board Member Cobos, can you unmute your microphone and signify that you are here and present?
I am present. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first comment came from Cesar Lopez, who has left the meeting, but his comment that he dropped in says that someone needs to help us out. We just can't compete with unlicensed business. It's completely brutal without any end. Our next comment is going to come from Debbie Rodriguez, and I've unmuted your microphone.
Debbie?
Unmute button. Are you with me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, my name is Debbie Rodriguez. I've been before this board before. My comment basically is about, I made 5 complaints to the board about unlicensed contractors and the municipality of Sacramento giving contracts to them. And the board, I guess, did act on one of them. I'm not sure how the priority thing works and why the other 4 didn't, but more to the point, since then I've discovered many municipalities across the state are doing the same thing. And mostly it is revolving around artists and works that they're paying them to display, whether a lot of them are for painting murals on buildings and, sides of roads and things like that. Some of these contracts are quite extensive in the amount of money that they're doing. And the municipalities don't seem to believe that they're beholden to the state contractor's license law. But in addition, the artists themselves are the ones that need an outreach by this board. And I would ask that an agenda item be put on a future meeting to discuss how to do that, because murals are exploding across the state. It's become very popular. And with municipalities lending credence to the fact that they don't need to be licensed, there needs to be a balancing factor. And this board, I believe, needs an outreach effort somehow to reassure them that they are, in fact, painters and decorators under the state license law. I've spoken to many of them, and really they don't believe they qualify either. They seem to think they're above that. I don't see much of a difference, between a guy who paints walls and a guy who paints murals on walls. But they seem to believe that. So the only difference that I can see between the two is the attitude. But it's not just paint, murals, but sculptures and all sorts of things. So both of those things, I believe, should be addressed by this board post haste, because the longer that it's ignored, the larger that scope is going to be when the time comes to do it. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And Davi, if I could ask you to lower your hand now that you've spoken. And with that, that's our last request for comment for now.
Okay, thank you. And Debbie, someone, if you put your information in chats, someone from staff will be able to reach out to you. Thank you. So moving on. Committee members, are there any items that you would like to be placed on any future agendas? Shelley, I'm having issues of seeing hands are being raised, so please interrupt me if so, but I don't see any.
I don't see any either.
Okay, great. So moving on to agenda item C, and just to make sure, before going forward, are there any members of the public who would wish to address the committee on a future agenda item other than what Debbie stated? I don't see any. So moving on to item C of our agenda, the enforcement program update and staff vacancy update. This item begins on page 7 with an update on staff vacancies with the enforcement division. The table at the top of that page shows the number of vacant positions by classifications within the division as of July 21st. This table lists 37 vacant positions with the enforcement division. Fortunately, we discovered after the print that the 37 vacancies, including staff out on extended leave, so the actual number of enforcement vacancies is 25. I'm pleased to report that enforcement management has moved quickly to fill vacant positions. Division managers report that the tight labor market has made it more difficult to find and recruit qualified candidates to fill enforcement positions. The remaining vacant positions have been posted on the state's hiring website or will be soon, and the division's recruitment efforts will continue. Moving on to item C, enforcement program update, complaint handling statistics. Before we move on, Steve Grove, was there anything that you wanted to add in on enforcement program update for staff vacancy?
No, you covered it well, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, great. So item C, enforcement program update, complaint handling statistics. The table of staff vacancies on page 7 is followed by a statistical overview of enforcement division activity for fiscal year 2021-2022. The first entry in this section shows that enforcement division opened 19,158 complaint investigations during the fiscal year. This is a 16% increase over the previous fiscal year and illustrates that the COVID lull is ending. Unfortunately, the increase in complaints, coupled with the vacant investigator positions, have contributed to an increase in the backlog of complaints. The division's goal is to hold the number of pending complaints to 3,620 and the number of age cases, that is, those that are over 270 days from date of receipt, to 100. At the end of July, the number of pending investigations was 4,747, and the number of age cases was 261. To address the backlog of complaints increased in age cases, Enforcement Chief Steve Grove and his management team are working diligent to ensure that vacant positions are refilled with qualified candidates as soon as possible. A limited amount of overtime has been authorized for staff to assist with the backlog of incoming complaints. And enforcement supervisors are working very closely with their investigators, monitoring their caseloads and production while providing assistance through repair case reviews. However, if incoming consumer complaints continue to exceed complaint handling ability, process changes may be necessary. Starting on page 8, these are a few of the division accomplishments for the fiscal year, including over 22 million in restitution returned to financially injured consumers, 506 cases referred for criminal prosecution, 218 accusations filed for license revocation or suspension, 1,551 administrative citations issued, and almost 1.9 million in civil penalties collected. And although this is not in your packet, there was 354 letters of admonishment issued. Moving on to page 9 of the board packet, you will find a summary of activity by the statewide investigation fraud team, or better known as SWIFT. The special investigators assigned to SWIFT handle proactive enforcement for CSLB. They conduct undercover sting operations, perform enforcement sweeps of active construction sites, and respond to reports of illegal construction activity. In fiscal year 2021-2022, SWIFT investigators conducted 17 undercover sting operations, participated in 337 days of enforcement sweeps, and responded to 996 leads. As a result, SWIFT completed 2,972 investigations, which resulted in 390 referrals to local DAs for criminal prosecution, 598 citations issued, 129 letters of admonishment issued, and 319 stop orders. These stop orders required an immediate halt to the use of employee labor by contractors who did not have a valid workers' compensation insurance policy. And 1,386 advisory notices were issued for minor violations. Moving on to page 10, there's a table showing during the first half of calendar year 2021, SWIFT, along with partnering agencies from the Joint Enforcement Strike Force, which include EDD, Cal-OSHA, DLSE, and FTB, recovered or resolved over 10 million in outstanding liabilities owed to CSLB and other state agencies. Finally, you will see on page 10 that SWIFT once again participated in the nationwide enforcement operations coordinated by NASCLA, the National Association of State Contracting Licensing Agencies. This year, California and 11 other participating states conducted widespread enforcement operations from June 6th to June 24th. This campaign is intended to raise awareness and is not a competition. But as usual, CSLB was at the top of the pack with its results. SWIFT investigators conducted 3 undercover stings and made 53 sweeps of construction sites, working in 20 counties throughout California. SWIFT's efforts resulted in 142 legal actions and 40 stop orders. This is an informational only item. Shelley, is there any public comment that would like to comment on this report?
We do have a hand raised from Stephen Melton. Stephen, I'll send a request to unmute your microphone. And you are unmuted. Stephen, go ahead.
Hello? Yes, I live in Fresno, California, and we have a big problem. I'm a floor covering contractor, and we have a big problem here with guys working, doing jobs, and buying floors and selling them with no license. And man, they're taking hundreds of jobs. I've done work for a certain apartments complex all over the state for 30 years, and I'm losing all my apartment buildings because they're coming in and they're buying their materials and stuff really cheap and doing the labor for almost nothing. And it's got to where you only work like 2 or 3 days a week, if that now. I was just wondering what else we could do about it. That's it.
Thank you for your comment. As stated before, board members and committee members can't answer your questions, but if you leave your contact information in the chat, someone from staff will reach out to you. There is actually a Fresno office that they can put you in contact with. Shelley, is there any other public comment?
Thank you. And Mr. Melton, if you could lower your hand now that you've had a chance to speak. We did have a question. Is there a place on the website or somewhere that one can download a listing of these statistics? I believe they are in the meeting materials, correct?
Yes, the meeting materials do reference, I was going off of the page numbers based off of the board packet or for this enforcement committee packet.
Thank you. And that is the only questions we've received.
Are there any comments from committee members?
Yes, this is Susan Granzella. I have a question, Chair Mark. Given the statistics we have, which were, the statistics from last year, and starting the meeting with our vacancy update, which there was good news in the latest statistics that you were able to verbally convey. This is really for our Mr. Grove as well. Given the vacancies that we do have, how are we positioned to ramp up the SWIFT operations for this coming year? We were impacted in so many ways by COVID and other factors, but mainly by COVID. So what do you see as our game plan to increase, if necessary, the SWIFT operations or general enforcement for the coming year?
I will, thank you, Susan, that's great. I do know that this entire meeting today is going to be tackling our strategic goals moving forward, and some of those items of your questions will be addressed later on, but Mr. Grove, please hop in.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Susan, to answer your question, this is something that I have been talking to my staff about, and we are very anxious to get back to our normal level of sting operations. However, we are currently having some real difficulty finding sting properties. So that's our big hurdle right now. And we have put out some requests and industry bulletins seeking assistance from contractors and the public. But that's our big hurdle as far as increasing sting operations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other committee member comment? I would like to say a couple words. I think overall, with the amount of vacancies that we had, this amount of unlicensed activity that is being caught and found is great numbers that are being presented today in that report. I would just like to say, Steve Grove, you and your team keep up the hard work. So, is there any other comments, Shelley?
None at this time.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move to item D. So update, review, discussion, and possible action on the 2022-2024 strategic plan objectives. So turning to page 13 of your packet, I would like to now present a progress update on Enforcement Division's goals in the 2020-24 strategic plan, which is agenda item D. I'll be providing the updates on 5 of the division's 6 strategic goals, and we will be asking for possible committee action on 3 of these. We will begin with strategic goal 2.1, which reads, leverage current enforcement tools, and some of those tools include letters of admonishment and accusations to increase licensee and business knowledge by requiring contractors subject to CSLB corrective action take specific courses. As discussed in your packet, the issue here is how to steer errant contractors into educational courses that would help them better comply with contractor license law requirements. The letters of admonishment, or better known as LOA, was implemented in 2018, and it effectively allows CSLB to require a contractor to complete specific training as part of a corrective action plan. But the LOA is a lower level of corrective action. Unlike LOA, the accusations are considered formal disciplinary action and typically seek license revocation. Some accusations are settled by staying the license revocation if the licensee complies with the specific conditions, such as posting a disciplinary bond, paying restitution, or paying CSLB cost recovery. Failure to post a disciplinary bond or pay restitution to injured parties can result in licensee revocation. But at present, the only mechanism for compelling a respondent to complete a mandated training course is by filing a second accusation. This is a costly and time-consuming process. Ideally, a respondent who was required to complete training in an accusation would have their license automatically revoked if they failed to comply. To do this would require legislative action. Industry leaders who attended a June 6 meeting and Deputy Attorney General liaisons were receptive to the change. Enforcement Division staff have recommended that we pursue this option. In other progress regarding this strategic goal, CSLB staff has researched available training classes at academic institutions and have identified several that could be appropriately prescribed for specific violations. Staff recommends the following motion. For the Enforcement Committee to request the full board to consider a legislative proposal authorizing CSLB to automatically revoke a license subject to a formal disciplinary order if the receiving respondent does not complete a specific instructional course and or take and pass the business law or trade exam. So, committee members, do you have any comments or suggestions on the staff recommendation for strategic goal, for the strategic goal?
Actually, I have a question. It says that a list of available options will be provided for the enforcement staff. Will we have at some point information about how the corresponding courses to remedy the action that was cited, how that would work, or could we at the meeting when we, if passing, present this to the full board, have that information available at that time?
Mr. Grove, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm going to have to refer that maybe to Registrar Fote or Michael Jamnetsky. I don't have that information.
Hi, this is Dave Fote, and we can definitely provide you some potential courses. We've already researched them, so we'll provide those to the full board at the August 30th meeting.
That would be great. That would be great. That I think would give context around such a motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Shelley, is there any other board member comment on this one?
No, I'm not seeing any hand raises from board members.
Okay, Shelley, is there any public comment on this?
We do. We have a comment from Jeanette Gallant. Jeanette, I'm unmuting your microphone, and you will have 3 minutes for your comment.
Oh, hello. Hi, thank you. Yeah, actually, I am a little bit behind it. This is related to the SWIFT activities that were mentioned and the sting opportunities. I'm a consumer and have a problem with a contractor, and I'm in the arbitration. So I'm just listening in to get some, information about enforcement and what you all do. And so, having been in a situation where I had a problem with a contractor that dropped the ball and charged us for more than what they did, I was just wondering with that SWIFT activity, I've never heard of that before, and whether or not there's a portion of the enforcement committee that would allow a consumer, while they're within experiencing the problem, to contact somebody to come and investigate and work the solution before it progresses. And you have a lot of complaints, a backlog, and I experienced that. It took me a long time to get to the point where I got into the arbitration, and I'm not happy with the results of the arbitrator. So anyway, just working on a correction to award activity now, and that's kind of the gist of my question. So I was wondering, in terms of reducing your load, is there a way to help people out sooner rather than wait for the complaint? So I realize you can't respond at this time, but that's, maybe you can be thinking about that.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We appreciate your comment, and you're right, the board members can't respond, but if you put your information in the chat, someone from staff will be able to reach out to you.
And so Steve Milton, you still have your hand raised. I'm going to assume that's left up from last time. If you could lower it. And you can lower it by doing the same thing you did to raise it. And I will check in with you. Steve Milton, did you have a comment on this item?
Well, actually, I've noticed around the Fresno area where we live, there's a lot of floor cover and installers that doesn't have license that work under one guy's license. And as a matter of fact, there's one guy has 49 people working under his license, and then he just turns around and takes 11%. The companies make the checks out to him, and then they give them to that guy, and then he turns around and makes checks to the guys that's doing the work and takes 11% of their money and 1099s them with a 1099 form at the end of the year. So you got 49, 50 guys working under one guy's license, going around doing a lot of work that, somebody else with a license could be doing. That's it.
Thank you. And if you could lower your hand, please.
All right, any other public comment, Shelley?
That is it for now.
All right, committee members, there is a staff recommendation to our committee. Is there a motion to approve the staff recommendation?
So move.
Motion.
I hear a motion by, I think, Board Member Cobos.
Second by Susan Granzella.
We have a second by Susan Granzella. Mariah, can you please call roll?